Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah. So before I start this lesson on demonstrate digital literacy, let me confirm if all my students are present. So Joseph, can you confirm?
Yes, all are in today.
Oh, that's good. So we begin by looking at the lesson objectives. So the first objective by the end of this lesson, should be able to define a computer. The second objective is explain information processing lifecycle. Then determine computer components. And last but not least, describe the computer software. So we start with the definition of a computer. So Oliver, can you define a computer?
A computer,
yes,
refers to an electronic device that receives input.
I can't hear you well. Can you come up again, please?
Okay, what about now? Can I continue?
Yeah, I can hear you now. So proceed.
Also, a computer refers to an electronic device that receives input from a user, processes it, and
maybe Joseph can help. I couldn't hear Oliver well. Maybe network inamsumbua kidogo. You can look for network. Yes.
We can define a computer as an electronic device that accepts data as input, processes the data, and gives out an output in the form of information.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
good trial. So, as you've heard, a computer is an electronic device that inputs data, processes the data by converting it into information that is useful to the computer users, then outputs it as information or the already processed data, and then stores the information, the computer. So we have programs in the computer which performs this operation of converting data to information. We'll look at it in a few. So generally, a computer is a device that accepts input, processes it, and produces an output, then stores the processed data. Now, let's look at the information processing cycle. We have the steps we followed when processing data. So the first thing, a user, as you can see in that diagram, there's a user inputting text. So that's how data is entered into the computer. Then after being input, obviously the user will use a software to process or to allow data to be entered into the computer. So while performing the input, the processor will then manipulate the data, then instruct the computer hardware, which is the monitor. You can see their output as the third step. The processed information, the processed data is then output by the use of the screens. Then you can see their storage. After you finish processing the data, it can be stored in the computer by use of various memories or storages. Now we say that we input, then there's a processing step, output, then storage. So let's look at the input. Here, data provided to the computer by a person or environment is entered. So it can be in form of words and symbols. We have numbers, we have pictures. So who can give any other input? I believe Oliver now can be heard. Can you try?
Can you be heard?
Yeah. Sorry, Oliver, I lost you again. Maybe Joseph, you can try again. You can maybe give an input.
You can have other types of data. Maybe signals.
Yes.
We can have data in the form of signals, that is in the form of bits, or an analog type of signal. That is
sure, that's true, that's true. Okay, thank you for that. So we can get an input from, it can be an audio signal from a microphone. So that's how data is entered into the computer. Then signals from another computer can also be data. You have temperature, what they call temperatures, and then speed, we have pressure, etc. So let's look at the processing stage in data processing. So we also have this one here. As said earlier, it's the manipulation of data. So when data is entered, it's being manipulated to make a meaning or to be meaningful to the user. So data, these are symbols that represent raw facts, objects, ideas about people, places, events, and things that are of importance in maybe an organization. So a computer program or software, these are a series of instructions that tell a computer how to carry out processing tasks. So examples of processing, a computer can perform arithmetic calculations. That's processing of data. Then we have sorting a list, modifying pictures, drawing graphs. Even that one can be termed as processing. So let's look at the output. Having learned about the input and processing, now let's look at the output. So when you hear about the word output, what comes to your mind? What comes to your mind? Hello, hello, can you hear me? You are muted. Joseph? You can unmute, maybe? Joseph, are you around? Okay, let me proceed. Output means, another term for output is information. So an output is the processed data. It's data, it is processed that makes, that is meaningful to the user. So the results or the end results after processing the data is what we call the output. So output devices can include displays or the screens. Printers can help in producing or giving out an output. And this transmits the results after processing. So examples of output: images on the monitor or the screens, printed documents. This is what we call hard copy. And the images on the monitor is what we call soft copy. Sounds, we have signals. So sounds can come from speakers. Signals to device controllers. And those are some of the examples. Now let's look at the computer components. As you can see in this image, what can you see, Oliver? What can you see?
See and the remote.
So
I can see a monitor.
Oh, you can see a monitor. Thank you. So all these are, yeah. So all these are components of the computer. Now let's look at they are categorized. So we have a software that you can only see, you can touch. They are inside the computer. So we have application software and the system software. So we're going to look about this in detail in a bit. So you have number 2 component is the hardware. So hardware, these are components of a computer that you can see and touch. You can also call them tangible devices, like the monitor you see there, the processor, memory, keyboard, mouse. You have the printer there, speakers, even the scanner. So those are parts of the computer that you can see and touch. So they are categorized into input, we have the output, we have the storage, we have the CPU. Yeah, so those are the hardware parts. Then we also have liveware. You know, computers can't operate themselves, so they need a computer programmer or a computer user to operate them, to enter data into the computer. So by entering data, you can either type, you can either send, you can maybe capture an image that's entering data by the use of cameras. So they can't do that by themselves. They need a user. That's what we call a liveware. So let's look at the computer software briefly before we conclude our today's lesson. And as defined earlier, computers are controlled by stored programmed instructions, which are softwares that transform the data or manipulate the data into a meaningful information, an information which can be read by the user. So another way you can define a software is these are sets of instructions that tell a computer hardware what to do. So I want you to look at this clip. I hope you learn something about computer software after watching this clip. So stay tuned, feel comfortable as we watch this together.
You can't see it or feel it, but it's always there. Software is a set of instructions, data, or programs that tell a computer how to work. This can be anything from applications to games to spreadsheets. Hardware, on the other hand, is the physical parts of a computer, like the monitor, processor, keyboard, or mouse. Software is the digital portion that runs on this hardware. Software often falls into two categories: application software and system software. Application software is typically user-downloaded programs that fulfill a want or need, such as word processors, antivirus programs, games, photo editors, and web browsers. System software includes operating systems, like Mac OS or Windows, and any program that supports application software. System software runs at the most basic level of a computer, and often passively, without much end-user intervention. Additionally, the term middleware describes programs that mediate between application software and system software. Middleware acts as a translator, facilitating communication and data exchange between the two applications. Remember when software came on floppy disks? What were some of your favorite old programs? Let us know in the comments, and be sure to give this video a like.
So I believe you are educated enough on the computer software. At least you have an idea what a software is. Now, I'll before I wind up, I want you to do a research on system softwares, and then we'll begin from there in our next lesson. So thank you, and have a nice day.